Springfield's Talk 1041. Good Monday morning. Welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Nick Reed. We will tomorrow have some special programming, and then we are going to have our traditional An American Christmas that is hosted by Chip Davis, Mannheim Steamroller, and that will begin actually tomorrow at noon. So we have special morning show programming tomorrow. Then Glenn Beck will run as usual, though I'm sure he's going to have, I don't know if the Stu and them are just going to be filling in or there'll be someone else. But that being said, Glenn Beck's show will be on tomorrow 9 till noon. And then starting at noon is our American Christmas. Mannheim Steamroller. It's Chip Davis hosting that from noon all the way through Christmas Day. It's a great tune-in for you, especially on, well, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and would encourage you to check it out. That, of course, is once again thanks to ABC Books on North Glenstone, Top of the Rock as well, and they last year helped make that possible, and once again doing it again this year. And so I think that covers everything, doesn't it? In terms
and then you're going to be on vacation.
Yes, I will be on vacation, so we'll have folks filling in.
That is correct. So Thursday will be Kyle Wyatt. Friday, Tom Martz. Monday, Representative Darren Chappell. Tuesday, Dr. John Lilly. And then Wednesday, we will have special programming once again.
That is true. And then I will be back on the 2nd.
That's right.
So there we have it, everyone. All right. We will talk with Congressman Burleson today, and we spoke with him twice last week. He was one of the Republicans that really held out and stood with his convictions when it came to dealing with the continuing resolution. So we'll get his thought process as that unfolded, how he feels about where things landed. I guess it's just the longer that you observe this stuff, the more you just, the patterns, they repeat themselves over and over and over again. And you watch the segments of the population react based off of how long they've been paying attention. And the weekend storyline is that Elon Musk was responsible for killing kids' cancer research. Yes. You had the media messaging this out that Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, has denied children cancer research. Republicans don't care about kids with cancer. Well, as usual, there's just a little more to that story. And in fact, as is oftentimes the case, what it is that they're accusing Republicans of is what the Democrats have actually been doing for months and months and months now, because they wanted to use this as a bargaining chip. So what we actually have are the Democrats using child cancer as a bargaining chip, as leverage to try to get what they want. And the threat, of course, is if you don't give us what we want, then we're going to we'll accuse the Republicans of denying children much-needed cancer research. So we'll get you all straightened out on that coming up this morning. CNN is going all out to shame fathers who buy hunting rifles for their sons. And 60 Minutes at the same time, this is, of course, in the aftermath of the most recent school shooting. 60 Minutes has done an anti-Second Amendment piece as well, in which it's not only full of holes, but again, you watch this stuff and you think, essentially the 60 Minutes piece is comparing our gun laws to Mexico. Because Mexico has proven to be, nothing other than one of the safest countries in the world, of course. And they note that, how loose in their version of things our gun laws are versus Mexico. And in Mexico, there's only one gun store, which I actually didn't know that. It's in Mexico City, only one in the entire country. While here in the United States, we've got more gun shops than post offices, they note. But what they fail to mention is per capita, Mexico has 3 times as many murders as we do here in the United States. Those little nuggets of information that completely run contrary to what it is they're trying to mislead people into believing. And all of this backdrop by this self-evaluation, or at least that's what we're told is going on in the media, where they're really trying to figure out how to not become irrelevant. Well, here's an idea. Stop lying. Stop utilizing the platform for your political agenda. I mean, that would just be a start. Weather in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Cullerton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see scattered showers mainly afternoon with a high near 50. Tonight, showers with a low around 43. For your Christmas Eve, showers and storms with a high near 49. And on Christmas Day, mostly cloudy with a high near 51.
And, of course, streaming online, ksgf.com. We are also on YouTube if you'd like to watch the show. We would love for you to do that. And you can watch past episodes if you'd like, current ones as well. That thanks to Springfield Raps, who also designed the KSGF studio. The continuing resolution battle that played out over a few days and the panic of potential government shutdown, that I think you'd be hard-pressed to find any average American who gave two licks. This is a nothing but fear to fear itself situation that always plays out, and that Democrats have used to their advantage. The Republican establishment is always just, they're scaredy cats when it comes to worrying about the media, accusing them of horrific things. And, of course, the media does this. The latest version of this is the claim that Republicans refuse to pass kids' cancer research, specifically Elon Musk. And we'll get to that component a bit later, because I love all of this hysteria over Elon Musk is the real president. Well, first off, Trump isn't even sworn in as president yet. The fact that they seem to forget that is should be a real look in the mirror. We don't even know who's running the country right now. Perhaps Democrats should worry more about that than whether or not Elon Musk has undue influence over Donald Trump. Maybe we could start with who is actually running the country right now? Who is running the Democrat Party right now? But as with most lies told by the Democrats in the media, the opposite is actually true. Brianna Lyman has a quick piece laying this out in the Federalist. Dems refused to pass kids' cancer research bill until they could use it to push 1,500 pages of pork. As I read this, keep in mind the consistency of Democrats demonstrating that there is no issue that they really care about unless they can use it against, and when they can feel as if they can use it against their political opposition. Because when it occurs at their own hands, it's perfectly legit. Back in March, the Republican-led House passed H.R. 3391, which would continue funding research of pediatric diseases like childhood cancer. The legislation never went anywhere, however, in the Senate under the leadership of Democrat Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. But now Democrats are trying to use sick kids with cancer as leverage to pass the 1,500-plus pages of pork. On Wednesday, this is in the midst of the continuing resolution fight, Speaker Mike Johnson unveiled a 1,500-page so-called continuing resolution that was really nothing more than a stuffed omnibus bill that included money for censorship, sweetheart deals for Congress, and other unnecessary expenditures. Almost immediately, the pork-stuffed continuing resolution was rebuked by millions of Americans, including President-elect Trump and incoming co-director of the Department of Government Efficiency, known as DOGE, Elon Musk. Following public pressure, the House released a trimmed-down version, 116 pages, on Thursday. That measure funds the government through March 14th. The new version keeps the $110 billion in disaster relief and farmer assistance from the original bill and suspends the debt ceiling for 2 years. The new version also removed the funding for childhood cancer. And suddenly, after House Resolution 3391 has collected dust in the Senate under the leadership of Schumer for months, Democrats are now outraged about funding for pediatric cancer research. The Bulwark's Sam Stein wrote that after pediatric cancer research advocates spent years working to get the funding, Elon began tweeting, and Elon killed the budget deal, according to Stein, and with it funding for childhood cancer research. Hawaii Democrat Senator Brian Schatz posted on X, F cancer, especially pediatric cancer. These people want to punish these precious little kids to pay for tax cuts for the wealthiest corporations in human history. What the heck? This doesn't even have anything to do with tax cuts anyway. This is how detached, morally, ethically, intellectually, some of these members of Congress are from the truth. Aside from the fact that it's Democrats who have refused to pass what already passed the House, the Republicans passed the funding for the childhood cancer research. It is Chuck Schumer since March, the Democrats, who have blocked it from going forward. because they wanted this moment. They wanted to use it. But then to put in the additional step that this is somehow connected to, giving tax cuts to the wealthiest corporations in human history, there's nothing to do with that. Pod Save America host John Favreau blamed Musk, quote, "Congrats to Elon Musk for giving the people what they want, less funding for child cancer research." But where was the condemnation from Favreau or Schatz or Stein when Schumer sat on House Resolution 3391? Why haven't they begun pressuring Schumer to do something with that legislation? If the only time you come out swinging in defense of funding for childhood cancer research is when you can use it to smear your political opponents and push through pork spending, but you stay silent when your own party sits on the legislation after Republicans passed it, you're not the good guy. You're a hypocrite using sick children as leverage to further your pet projects. And that's exactly what has occurred. Every issue, every so-called victim, in which oftentimes they actually are, sometimes they're not, depending on the issue. Every cause is only a cause for the Democrats if it is something that they can use against political opposition, especially when it comes to kids. This obviously the focus on childhood cancer, but look at the children, over 300,000 that the Biden administration has lost into what everyone acknowledges they're sold as sex slaves in this country. Where are the Democrats? Where is the weeping that we saw many Democrats carry out in front of the cameras whenever Trump was president, and they were talking about kids in cages, the kids in cages that, of course, were fine when Obama set them up, but then when Trump becomes president and continues with the Obama policies, all of a sudden it's horrible, to the point. The kids don't matter unless they can be used as weapons, whether that is children who are sold into this country for sex slavery out of other countries, or it is childhood cancer research and children with cancer. The depraved, dark soul of the Democrat Party to sit on what was passed legislation to fund childhood cancer research simply so they could use it as a weapon against Republicans. Yet Republicans were told are the bad ones. And of course, the media is right there spreading the disinformation as loudly as they possibly can. Well, congratulations. Aren't you heroes? Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. It's almost hysterical. Oh, well, that stopped at an appropriate time. That
I
was
know.
just
A really grand entrance,
yeah, I know.
actually.
I know, like royalty or something. The let me tell you, this outrage over what the media is trying to present as Elon Musk is now calling the shots. Let me tell you what this means. This means that Trump is being effective in the picks of people with whom he surrounds himself. I think this is just fantastic, and the media and the Democrats are panicked over this. See, they got to control social media. They've controlled media. They've controlled virtually all of the messaging, the mainstream messaging that's been out there. And when you are totalitarian and you want a one-party rule system, you don't want there to be any effectiveness from opposition party. You're fine with there being an opposition party, but much like, girls in the transgender debate, you're supposed to keep your mouth shut and just sit there quietly and not actually do anything. You're to be seen, not heard. And as we all know, and Trump himself has acknowledged this when asked, what are you going to do differently? What would you look back, your biggest mistake in your first term? And it was the people with whom he surrounded himself. He tried to do what he was called upon to do in order to get along and keep some of the insiders. That was half or more of his battle on a daily basis. These people trying to sabotage his presidency. And Trump has done, and thus far with success, what Trump does. And when he, makes a go at something and it doesn't work, then he does it differently. And so he's gone this direction of, okay, no more insiders. We're going to get the outsiders here. And that they are not controlled by anyone other than carrying out the mission in which they've been tapped to carry out. Now, this isn't to say that out of all of the different appointments that he's going to make and get it, that there aren't going to be some individuals that try to sabotage the administration. But the reason that they're so upset right now, particularly with Elon Musk, is because he's successfully broadcasting the message of the American people who voted Trump into office. And this is problematic for the media because, as you know, they go to great lengths to make it seem as if people who are MAGA Americans are these extremists that do not represent the population at large. And what Elon Musk, with this whole crazy freedom of speech thing and not censoring one political ideology on the platform of X, it is allowing for a more realistic feel of where the American people are. When their folks had control over all of the social media, it was much easier for them to gaslight the American people, to make Trump supporters feel as if they're in the minority, to make Trump supporters feel as if the entire world was against them and that no reasonable person was a supporter of Donald Trump. And Elon Musk, it's not Elon Musk's voice. It is his voice that is amplifying the voice of what the American people voted for. And that is what worries them. That's what instinctually gives them big issue because it reflects what it is that they want, or the opposite of what they want us to believe, and that is you're isolated, you're alone, you're in the minority. And when you just, we feel it, that we're not. I mentioned it before, but after the election, what my wife had said, and I just thought it was such a simple statement, but it was so absolutely on point. And she said, it's just nice to know that we aren't the crazy ones, that we're the normal ones. You know, it's nice to see that play out. I mean, you know that you're normal, but you look around and you think, am I the only normal one? I mean, yes, there's this small grouping of us, but every day bombarded with the disinformation and the Trump is Hitler, and it's just nonstop. And seeing that not only did that not work, but that the majority of people who voted were voting the same way that Trump supporters were voting because they were supporting Donald Trump for a myriad of different reasons. And there's strength in numbers. There's momentum that gets created. And that is where this ability of people once again to utilize social media, at least on X, to be able to do so without censorship, without the deep state folks picking up the phone, making phone calls, telling them what they should and shouldn't allow, to be posted. And that's an extremely powerful thing. Generally speaking, the less censorship, the more that the truth rises to the top. And that's what we're seeing. And that's why the media is so panicked over this. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see scattered showers, mainly afternoon with a high near 50. Tonight, showers with a low around 43. For your Christmas Eve, showers and storms with a high near 49. And on Christmas Day, mostly cloudy with a high near 51.
Jen Psaki on Sunday morning during whatever show she has was remarking on Trump responding to all of the Elon Musk stuff is like, hey, make no mistake, I'm in charge. And she notes, that's not a good sign when you have to make that statement. Now, I wouldn't have bothered, personally. But coming from the Democrat Party right now, are you serious? Who's the president? Mind you, these are people that spent the months leading up to the November election telling us that Trump was a Hitler dictator who refused to listen to anyone else. He was this tyrant, and all he was looking for were yes men. Remember this? Oh, he just wants to surround himself with yes men. That's all that he wants. Well, that's how dictators behave. Now we're told that he's just handing over the keys to the kingdom. All of a sudden, Trump is just allowing somebody else to tell him what to do. These people cannot even keep track of their own assessments. The intellectualism is so thin, if even that. In any one given day, Donald Trump is a dictator who is power hungry and only wants to surround himself with people who tell him what he wants to hear. Then, on the other hand, he's someone who's just letting Elon Musk run the country. Which is it? This reminds me of one of my very favorite contradictions, and that is when Trump got elected and the narrative from the media was that he never even expected to win, and he doesn't even really want this job. They just kept pounding away at that. Oh, that there were sources saying that he told Melania on the night he won, I don't know what I'm going to do now. He didn't want it. Oh, boy, this was such a big mistake, and he's a dog who caught the car, and now he doesn't know what to do with it. He doesn't even really want this job. And then that same media who portrayed him as somebody that had no interest in actually being president. He was just doing it to have something to do, in terms of running for the presidency. Then those same people say, no, he's a dictator who won't leave office. Which is it? It's intellectual romper room. And the fact that it's the Democrat Party, the past week, the discussion has partially been because finally you have some of these people in the Biden White House that are talking in this Wall Street Journal piece, talking, these individuals, some on the record, what lengths they've gone in order to mislead the American people since Biden got elected president about his cognitive abilities or disabilities. The reports that cabinet members weren't even able to meet with him. They had to talk to a go-between, and then the go-between would go into Biden and then come back out and relay whatever message, and we don't even know. I mean, odds are they weren't actually even meeting with Biden. All the while, and mind you, what we've learned is, I mean, they're the ones who are talking about it, so they've all known this. They've all been complicit in the conspiracy to cover up the fact that Joe Biden isn't actually running the country. And then now those same people are out there screaming from the rooftops that Donald Trump's letting Elon Musk call the shots. Oh, okay. There's a piece in Raw Story, I believe, that it's talking about the eerie parallels between Elon Musk and Rush Limbaugh, and how Elon Musk is now the one calling the shots for the Republicans, whereas once upon a time Rush Limbaugh did it. Now, this is a media that 99% of which is populated by Democrats who go out there and, again, have covered for the Democrats' lies regarding Biden and Hunter Biden and the Biden family and everything else under the sun. The entire media apparatus is controlled by Democrats. But, oh my goodness gracious, here's one guy that they fear is breaking through. One guy. And now we should all be very concerned. This all means that it's working. They fear that it's working. They fear the momentum that is on the side of the American people. Last week, I brought you this story about San Francisco's Department of Public Health, and they are using tax dollars to pay for a fat activist to be on the payroll. Virgie Tovar is the weight stigma czar. Tovar is author of You Have the Right to Remain Fat and a DEI professional who announced the position on her Instagram account last Monday. Quote, I'm unbelievably proud to serve the city I've called home for almost 20 years in this way, she wrote. The consultancy is an absolute dream come true, and it's my biggest hope and belief that weight neutrality will be the future of public health. She describes herself as a leading expert on weight-based discrimination and body positivity with over a decade of experience. She details her DEI work as well. Some of her former clients include the Seattle Transit Agency, UC Berkeley, Everybody Gym, and Affinity Spaces within Square and Waymo. Tovar has also partnered with leading beauty brand Dove to discuss issues like fat liberation. In a hashtag Dove partner video, for example, Tovar says examples of fat liberation are putting as much butter as she wants on her toast and wearing a bikini to the beach and children never being put on diets. She's against so-called diet culture for the obese, rejects Ozempic, and believes no one should have to be healthy. Now, I actually agree with her. But here's what comes along with that. If we are going to live in a world in which we recognize no one has to be healthy, in order to be consistent, we also need to live in a world in which no one else is responsible for your unhealthiness. This is the problem that people on the left have. They want to live the lifestyle that they want to live, which is absolutely fine. But they want everyone else to take care of them when there are repercussions from that particular lifestyle. I guarantee you this is somebody that believes that the taxpayers should fund all of her medical care. You can't honestly have it both ways. You can't, on one hand, I mean, you can, but it's intellectually dishonest and immoral to take the position that, hey, I should be able to do whatever it is that I want with my own body, but then to demand that you take care of her body whenever something goes wrong because of her choices in life. This stay out of my kitchen, stay out of my bedroom, stay out of my life that we hear from people on the left never applies to the repercussions. They carry that banner high and mighty until the moment comes that they are responsible for their actions. Then they want somebody else to kick in. And I can all but guarantee you that this is one of those individuals. I still would like to know where Michelle Obama is and all of the Michelle Obama fans out there. And that so-called Let's Move movement that was about health and the garden on the White House lawn, and then pushing to eliminate food deserts, which are areas that it's not that they don't necessarily offer food, but they don't offer healthy food in the assessment of Michelle Obama. The Michelle Obama who claimed that childhood obesity was a greater danger to this country than terrorism. Where is she? Where is that leadership? Where is that voice of reason and health? See, the two worlds are really colliding here. And I suspect that the reason Michelle Obama isn't asked about this movement of embracing unhealthy lifestyles is because they don't want to put her on the spot. Because they know that these two messages completely conflict with one another. But ultimately, yeah, I agree. No one should have to live a healthy lifestyle, but no one should have to take care of someone else's repercussions because of that unhealthy lifestyle. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com. All of your home loan needs, the characters and their team there to help you navigate through what can be intimidating, confusing, perhaps even frightening. But you can trust that they are going to evaluate a landscape that they already know well, and whether it's a refinancing question or is it the right time to buy? Should you wait until interest rates come down? What does that look like? Well, that could come back to bite you potentially. A lot of it's going to depend on your particular situation, but the one thing that you can count on is that the characters are there at your disposal. So if you have any preliminary questions, reach out to them. It all starts at iwantagreathomeloan.com. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. I just read that Biden commuted all federal death sentence prisoners. What? Except for three. Except for three. He announced today that he's commuting the sentences of nearly every inmate on federal death row to life in prison without the possibility of parole, in a move intended to keep Trump from going forward with executions he had previously halted. In a statement, Biden said that he was issuing the commutations to 37 of 40 federal death row prisoners. In keeping with a moratorium his administration imposed on executions, the moratorium excludes individuals convicted of terrorism and hate-motivated mass murder. Now, I've always had a problem with the inconsistency of some people when it comes to the death penalty. I understand arguments for it. I understand arguments against it. Some I agree with, some I disagree with. I mean, for me, one of the most persuasive arguments against the death penalty is you can't undo it. Yeah, even if you are in life for prison and after 40 years, finally it's realized that you were framed, you were railroaded, whatever. Even though 40 years of your life have been taken, you can still get out, but you can't undo the death penalty. And given what I think we've all learned over the years about how corrupt our judicial system is, that also gives me grave concern as well. Like I said, I think there are arguments on both sides. But what I do have a problem with are people who say that they're opposed to the death penalty because it is not the right of the government to take a human life, but, well, except for these people over here. Well, you either are supportive of it or you aren't supportive of it. Now, that doesn't mean you apply the death penalty to anyone and everyone, obviously. But to take a moral position as somebody who is anti-death penalty but then make exceptions for certain people? Like, I guess they just killed the wrong people. If they had killed the right people, they wouldn't have to worry about being executed, because that's the message that it sends. The list of commutations released by the White House on Monday did not include the Boston Marathon bomber, the Life Synagogue mass shooter in Pittsburgh, and the Charleston, South Carolina shooter at Mother Emanuel, the African-American church, in which 9 people were killed. All the others, however, are on the list of commutations. Among the death row prisoners that have had their sentence commuted, Thomas Stephen Sanders, a man who was sentenced to death for the kidnapping and murder of a 12-year-old girl in Louisiana. Len Davis, a former police officer who was sentenced to death for ordering the killing of a woman after she filed a complaint against him with the then Internal Affairs Division of the New Orleans Police Department, and Richard Allen Jackson, a man who was convicted of the kidnapping, rape, and murder of a 22-year-old who was simply out for a jog in Asheville, North Carolina. I believe that punishment can serve a number of purposes, and one of the purposes is a sign of how egregious a culture and a society finds a certain crime to be. I see these different date lines, and of course it varies state to state, but somebody gets convicted of murder and they get sentenced to like 12 years. To me, that's appalling. That's absolutely appalling. Because to me, that says that that person's life that was taken wasn't really fully worth a full life. 12 years. And if you, I'm, if you, as this administration has taken the position that there should be no death penalty, that it is wrong, it is not something that should occur, but then you allow it to potentially be applied to certain people, that culturally demonstrates that all of the others whom you have lessened the penalty, that there is some sort of, like, morally, those killings weren't as bad. I can't imagine being the family member of a victim, whether it's the 12-year-old girl or the person that simply went for a jog and was raped and tortured and murdered, and having the president of the United States go, you know what, that punishment's just a little too much. It's different if your position is death penalty is wrong, and so it's off the table for everyone, but when you allow it for a certain few, then you are demonstrating that in your minds, the murders and the crimes, the victims of all the others weren't quite as bad. And I think a lot of reasonable people would disagree with that position. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. All right, everyone. A reminder, special programming Christmas Eve, Christmas Day as well. Then have a rotation of some of your favorite guests hosting until I will return on January 2nd. News in 60 seconds. CNN going all in to shame fathers out of buying hunting rifles for sons. At the same time, CBS News 60 Minutes segment on gun control leaves out some, well, I'd say relevant information. Springfield's Talk 1041. I am Nick Reed, streaming live, KSGF.com. Grizzly Industrial, new partners with the station. We had an opportunity to talk with some of the Grizzly folks on Friday. They joined us out at Scramblers, and they've now, after 25 years in Springfield, part of the KSGF crew, and we're very happy about that. Largest woodworking and metalworking showroom in the world. South Kansas Expressway and Battlefield. You may have driven by it. You may not have realized that it's open to the public, but in fact it is. And 0% financing available with non-commission service, so you don't have to worry about somebody trying to upsell you into something that you don't need, just in order to get that commission, because they are non-commission. And you still have time. December, best deals of the year. Grizzly Industrial, South Kansas Expressway and Battlefield in Springfield. Less than a week after a 15-year-old girl shot and killed two at a Madison, Wisconsin Christian school, CNN went all in to shame fathers out of buying hunting rifles for their sons. Breitbart News noted the alleged Abundant Life Christian school shooter used a handgun, and Madison Chief of Police Sean Barnes later said she actually had two handguns in her possession. CNN reported that the origins of the two handguns in the girl's possession have been traced but cannot be made public at this time because of the ongoing investigation. 6 days after the heinous shooting, CNN rolled out a piece targeting parents who buy their sons or daughters firearms with which to hunt. CNN began the article with a story of an Oregon dad, Paul Kemp, who bought a hunting rifle for his son Nathan when he turned 16 years old. Nathan had been hunting with his dad since he was 7. CNN then stated, parents looking to purchase a firearm for their child for the holidays have to balance their hope for the gift with the risks that come with such a purchase, such as an accidental shooting, suicide, or the gun being used in a crime. In an attempt to bolster their position, CNN said, for example, the teenage school shooting suspect in Oxford, Michigan, and Winder, Georgia, allegedly used firearms they had received as Christmas gifts from their parents, and those parents have faced criminal charges. CNN did not mention that the gun used in the Oxford incident was a handgun, not a hunting rifle, and the gun used in the Winder incident was a gun the father gave the son while allegedly not monitoring the son's access to it. The Georgia's Bureau of Investigation noted that the charges against the father in the Winter incident stem from the father knowingly allowing his son to possess the weapon. CNN concluded the article by repeating the false claims that guns are the leading cause of death for U.S. children. It is unbelievable to me, though I suppose it isn't, that they can still get away with making this absurd claim that guns are the leading cause of death for U.S. children. It is absolutely 100% not true. The false statement, as noted in Breitbart, has been pushed by Biden, Kamala Harris, numerous Hollywood leftists. The claim is based on numbers that include people voting age 18 and 19 years old as children. So what you're doing is you are encompassing gang members, people that are in the inner cities, the Baltimores, the Chicagos, the St. Louis, these adult men that shoot and kill one another, and they have to they just kept inching the age up so that they could have a false statistic. And they always trot out this disinformation whenever there's a school shooting that involves an elementary school or a middle school, because they know in your mind you're thinking about small children. And so when they falsely claim that it's the number one killer of children in this country, they are attempting to get you to believe that elementary school students and middle school students or children lose their lives due to guns beyond any other form of death. And it's just, again, absolutely not true. Breitbart News noted that Centers for Disease Control and Prevention numbers show unintentional car deaths among people ages 0 to 19 were 27 times higher than unintentional gun deaths among the same age group. But what I just find so perfect about this is it was just a couple of months ago, maybe a few more than that, we were introduced to a man named Tim Walz. This guy, we were to fall in love with him, and he was a hunter. Oh, all of a sudden, even if you couldn't load your own shotgun, still, all of a sudden, hunting was cool again. That's part of Americana. That is part of the new manliness that we were told Trump supporters were very intimidated by. Tim Walz out there showing us that hunting is something that is part of the American spirit and part of him, which is why he should have been Vice President of the United States, part of his character. But here we go. We're right back to guns are bad. Hunting rifles are bad. They're not worth it. Because like every issue, they felt that the gun-toting issue was something that they could use to help get Trump supporters to cross over. Or maybe those blue-collar workers that sometimes vote Democrat, but they had voted for Trump in the past. And, what do they like in flyover country? Well, we know they like God and they like guns, and God's just a little too far. We don't want to go that far. But Tim Walz, he's a hunter. Oh, yes, this guy's a hunter. So we can use firearms to our advantage. Now that the election's over, they go right back to firearms are bad and dangerous, particularly in the context of hunting. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see scattered showers mainly afternoon with a high near 50. Tonight, showers with a low around 43. For your Christmas Eve, showers and storms with a high near 49. And on Christmas Day, mostly cloudy with a high near 51.
60-minute segment on gun control, leaving out a pretty significant point regarding gun violence, and they did this compare and contrast of sorts, U.S. versus Mexico. The article on the subject, Mexico has strict gun laws, whereas America is the Wild West. CBS News reporting during one of the deadliest chapters in its history, Mexico's government devised a new strategy to curb gun violence. It filed 2 lawsuits. The first, in 2021, included U.S. gun manufacturer Smith & Wesson and one of their wholesalers. The second, filed a year later against 5 U.S. gun stores, claimed they engaged in reckless and unlawful business practices that supply dangerous criminals with weapons. Like the U.S., Mexico's Constitution grants its citizens the right to bear arms, but unlike the U.S., that right comes with a long list of restrictions. There's also a big difference in the number of gun dealers, CBS notes. In the U.S., there are more than 75,000 active gun dealers, twice as many as U.S. post offices, while in Mexico there's only 1 gun store in the entire country, located in the middle of a heavily guarded military base in Mexico City. Now, what is important to many of us, and it's the obvious, so what happened to the murder rate in Mexico? It should have gone down, shouldn't it? That is a tidbit of information that apparently wasn't relevant to the people putting the story together, because the murder rate in Mexico per capita, apples to apples, is 3 times that in the United States. The lack of any sort of desire to have results is something that is the hallmark of the left in this country. It doesn't matter whether it works. All that matters is that you want it to work. It doesn't matter that prescription drug monitoring programs, we saw that right here in Missouri, in which story after story noted that prescription drug monitoring programs were something that were the answer to prescription drug addiction. And every story noted that every state except Missouri had one, which of course lends us some fantastic information. What are the results in all the other states? Of course, to people on the left, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that it doesn't help. It doesn't matter that Missouri wasn't the only state with a prescription drug addiction problem, because all other states had prescription drug monitoring programs, and we're told that is the remedy. That is supposed to help. It doesn't matter that it doesn't help, because we're trying. All that matters is that we do something. So to put together a story on gun violence and the death at the hands of firearms, and it's all done in the context of public safety, and you note these differences between the United States and Mexico, but you don't note that there's 3 times as many murders in Mexico as there are in the United States per capita. That seems kind of relevant, doesn't it? Their own report demonstrates that having stricter gun control laws doesn't help. Now, I suppose that their argument would be, well, but it's because we have loose rules here in the United States relative to Mexico. We have all these gun stores, so it's our fault. If it weren't for us, these guns wouldn't exist to be run into Mexico. Well, first off, that's extremely naive. But secondly, how does that work that still there's 3 times as many murders in Mexico than the United States when we're the ones with the firearms and they're not? I mean, by default, if it is an issue of the existence of firearms and the sheer volume of them, we should have many more murders in this country than Mexico does. But once again, the approach so often with government, and particularly with people on the left, it doesn't matter if it works. In fact, when it doesn't work, the answer is do more of it. When gun restrictions don't stop psychopaths from carrying out murders, we just need more gun restrictions. When more money to any sort of particular program doesn't actually work to fix the problem, we just need more money. When prescription drug monitoring programs don't actually stem the abuse of prescription drugs, we just need more monitoring programs. This insane approach of taking that approach that does not work, that is proven not to work, and then saying, let's do more of it, it is insanity. And it's more than just not fixing the problem. It is about making the problem worse. I mean, what's the big debate right now going on in this country? Well, one of them about health care. We are where we are because of government intervention. We are where we are because people in government, some of the very same people who are complaining about the system today, told us, no, here is the legislation called Obamacare, and this is going to be the fix. This is going to make healthcare cheaper. Those of you who like your insurance, it's going to go down. Your premiums, we were told $2,500 a month less that Obamacare would cost all of us who have insurance, that the premiums would go down annually by $2,500. That was the promise they made. You wouldn't have to, it was going to save rural hospitals. I mean, we still see stories about rural hospitals that are collapsing under the weight of Obamacare. No, it was going to save rural hospitals. Emergency rooms would be like ghost towns, because people would have insurance that was so affordable and have any doctor they wanted that they would no longer go to the emergency room for standard care. Instead, they would go through the process of finding a doctor and submitting the insurance and getting, all of the things that come along with that. None of the things that they said were going to happen happened. In fact, the opposite happened. And some of the biggest pushers of Obamacare, the Elizabeth Warrens of the world, they're the ones out there that are utilizing the murder of a health insurance CEO to further the cause of doing more of what has caused the problem. Oh, well, we need these same people to come up with some new plan in which government is once again the answer. We're literally killing ourselves by repeating the patterns over and over and over again. In fact, there's a piece I'll share coming up about the real numbers. We're hearing so much about insurance companies that are denying claims, and the fact that after Obamacare, there has been a massive spike in the denial of all of these things that we're told somehow justify the murder of a health insurance CEO are things that have occurred after Obamacare went into effect. And by the way, this was no surprise this was going to happen. There were voices warning that this was going to happen. And you had the media claiming that it was scaremongering, that it was fear-mongering, that they were scare tactics, that they were all lies. Obamacare was going to save us all. And here we are. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Bradford Light and the Springfield Market shelves and Macadoodles price cutter tailored for the hardworking men and women who appreciate the reliable, easy drinking experience. A tribute to the industrious spirit that defines the heartland out of Washington, Kansas. A beer that speaks to the dedication of the hands that built that heartland. And brought to you by Show Me Beverage, Kansas Territory Brewing Company. You can learn more about them and their other offerings, KansasTerritoryBrewingCo.com, or pick up Bradford Lights and Macadoodles and Price Cutters in the Springfield area. Regarding this, well, specifically Obamacare. One of you texted in on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. It's just like how some socialism wasn't done correctly. We'll get it right this time. And that is what you constantly hear from people who believe that government controlling people's lives is somehow the answer. When you note everywhere that's ever been done, there have been massive human rights atrocities. At worst, and at best, the quality of life diminishing drastically. And their claim is that, well, it just wasn't done right. You think about the narcissism. That something that has been tried over and over and over again never has succeeded. I mean, you take out the human component of it and just the recognition that all people are different. They have different wants, different desires. There's different drivers in their lives that motivate them, what it is that they're looking for. You know, everyone is different, but you just ignore that and pretend that that's not the case. And instead, people are these robot-like entities that are all exactly the same. So you can come up with some sort of mathematical formula in terms of healthcare, for example, in which no one is ever going to be denied. No one is ever going to be unhappy. It doesn't cost anybody anything, and everything is just wonderful. And there are people who believe that magically out there, people like in government, individuals who have demonstrated as a collective body, they are horrible at handling money. They are horrible at fixing problems, yet somehow magically, for the very first time ever, collectively, you're going to have a brain trust of individuals pass legislation that is going to craft and create this magical world in which healthcare doesn't cost anything, everyone is healthy, no one ever gets denied anything, everyone is just pleased as punch. You know how just flat out insane that idea is? How absolutely insane. And even if one wants to believe that there is, you know, again, magically this collective of people that are going to be able to create this, the fact that it has never, ever been done before should be a clue. Yet here we are. The promising of free stuff is such a siren song. And the devastation it leaves in its wake is not a warning enough for some people to steer away. Traffic update, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see scattered showers mainly afternoon with a high near 50. Tonight, showers with a low around 43. For your Christmas Eve, showers and storms with a high near 49. And on Christmas Day, mostly cloudy with a high near 51. And the Pyramid Roofing Company. With fluctuating temperatures this time of year, there is a pretty good chance that you may experience what are called nail pops. Now, nail pops, they can actually lead to your shingles shifting, and that can lead to leaks and eventually deck rot. Now, typically nail pops happen on older roofs or roofs that were improperly installed. And with rain in the forecast over the next couple of days, I do want to recommend the Pyramid Roofing Company for all of your roof repair needs. Now, the Pyramid team, they offer free roof inspections, they do residential and commercial roofing services, and they do work through that insurance process with you. They make the whole roofing process just as simple and easy as possible. So if it is time to schedule that free roof inspection, go ahead and give Josh a call today. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
There's a couple of relevant pieces. One relies heavily on the other regarding health care in this country, and some of the people who are squawking the loudest about the poor state of healthcare in this country are the same people who told us to trust them when it came to Obamacare. You have to pass it so that we'll know what's in it, and have left us with the results we have today. And they can't really argue otherwise. This was their whole selling point. What was the point of Obamacare? I mean, I could just hear the internal excuse making now. Well, this wasn't because of Obama. Then what was the point of Obamacare? The deterioration of our healthcare system has diminished greatly since Obamacare began coming into play. Even if you want to claim that that is somehow a coincidence or outside forces that are not related to government's intervention further beyond what it already was into our healthcare system, you certainly can't argue that it helped. Matt Margolis in PJ Media writes a piece, again, because of the discussion of healthcare and the assassination of the health insurance CEO, there's been a lot of, all right, what's wrong with our system? He writes, I'm old enough to remember when health insurance was affordable. It wasn't all that long ago. It was before Obamacare passed. Despite being officially called the Affordable Care Act, doesn't it remind you of the Inflation Reduction Act? It did the opposite. Despite being officially called the Affordable Care Act, nothing about it has made health insurance more affordable. The question is, for the higher premiums and larger deductibles we have, are we getting better coverage? The answer, which should not shock you, is a big fat no. That's right, despite paying more, you are getting less. Health insurance denials and delays have hit record highs. And while many point the finger at insurance companies, accusing them of prioritizing profits over care, they're not to blame. As Betsy McCoffey points out, the real culprits are the politicians who sold us Obamacare on a pile of lies. Quote, in 2013, before Affordable Care Act regulations kicked in, insurers denied roughly 1.5% of claims, according to the American Medical Association. McAfee points out, but under the Affordable Care Act rules, denials increased tenfold. Now, instead of 1.5% of claims being denied, nearly 15% are. And some insurers are denying a third or more of claims. Doctors and patients aren't just battling denials, they're also tangled in a bureaucratic nightmare of pre-authorizations. As McAfee points out, these delays force doctors to get insurer approval before providing care. And here's the kicker. The person giving the green light is often unqualified to make those decisions. The AMA warns that an OBGYN might be the one overriding your neurosurgeon's recommended treatment, and the consequences are deadly. McAfee cites the example of a doctor who had a patient with metastatic breast cancer who needed a specific drug combination. But thanks to prior authorization delays due to Obamacare, she had to settle for standard chemotherapy, which failed, and she died. Obamacare is killing people. It's not just anecdotes. A House Committee on Energy and Commerce investigation found that Cigna overturned 80% of its Medicare Advantage pre-approval denials upon appeal, proving that legitimate care is being withheld. And as McAfee reports, Cigna's algorithm, PXDX, denies authorizations in bulk without considering individual cases. Why are insurers behaving this way? Critics claim greed, but Obamacare's rules cap profits. If insurers make more money, they then refund customers through rebates. The real reason for these practices is the impossible promise baked into Obamacare, covering people with pre-existing conditions without charging them more. The math doesn't work, explains McAfee. Every year, 5% of the population uses over 50% of the health care. That's a fact of nature, politics aside. Who wins in the mess? Democrat politicians, of course. The promise of covering pre-existing conditions won votes. But as McAfee aptly notes, the real losers are the patients, especially the serious ill. Managed care's cost-cutting has left them battling denials, delays, and the risk of subpar treatment. The system that Barack Obama sold to the public is making health insurance and health care better, instead made it undeniably worse. The data is grim. Americans are sicker and living shorter lives since Obamacare's implementation, contradicting the administration's rosy claims. Yet Democrats continue to dismiss alternatives like low-cost catastrophic insurance, which could provide basic coverage for the healthy while avoiding the bureaucratic chokehold of today's plans. For years now, the narrative has been that Americans like Obamacare. But do they? Perhaps it's time to re-examine it and get something better to replace it. All one needs to do is note the current outcry regarding our health care system in this country. This is the world under Obamacare. And again, I think a lot of people mistakenly believe that, well, I'm not affected by Obamacare because I have private insurance. As is noted in this piece, all insurance is impacted by Obamacare because of the fascistic approach of having these private insurance companies, but they don't get to make the ultimate decision as to how things are run. And so while many of us think, well, I'm not trapped in the world of Obamacare, we all are trapped in the world of Obamacare, and we are all suffering higher premiums, deductibles, longer wait times, increasingly. People that once upon a time would be diagnosed with something that required a specialist would almost immediately get in to see that individual. Sometimes it's months. There has long been a myth because of the disinformation and because the way that the numbers were used to claim that life expectancy in the United States is shorter than countries that have socialized health care. But those numbers include car accidents and murders, in which your health care is irrelevant. If someone murders you, it doesn't matter what your health care is. If you are killed in a head-on collision going down the interstate, it does not matter what form of insurance you have. You are dead. When those in the past have been taken out, those deaths that are unrelated to health care, people in the United States had a longer life expectancy than people in countries with socialized medicine. And the reason overwhelmingly was the wait time to get in to see specialists. If somebody was diagnosed with diabetes in the United States or with some sort of heart disease or cancer, the time to get in to see a specialist was light years ahead of the amount of time it would take in a country with socialized medicine. What might take days or weeks in the United States would take months or even over a year, leading to a much shorter life expectancy for people who had those sorts of diseases and ailments that, if treated early enough, could extend the life of the patient. And what many of us have, just with such a great deal of angst and aggravation, have been trying to point out since the inception of Obamacare, is that we are going to end up like those countries. And that is where we are in many capacities. And unfortunately, you have politicians who will use this as an issue to stay in power, and they will keep all of us trapped in a system that continues to provide us less affordable and less quality care, all while promising us that it's going to get better. They're scam artists. And increasingly, people are dying when 10, 20 years ago, they may not have. This is just facts, as they say. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. John Roberts salvaged Obamacare for them, and they didn't even say thank you. It's so true. That's the thanks that he gets. People still believe, and I'm one of them, that potentially they had something on him, whatever it was, to get him to save Obamacare. But yeah, what thanks has that gotten John Roberts among the left in this country? Can you post the article somewhere? Yes, we will. Do we have that posted yet? It will be posted somewhere.
Yep, ksgf.com under the must-read headlines.
There you have it. There you have it. According to a report, MSNBC is set to slash the salaries of Joy Reid and Stephanie Rule. Personalities Rule and Reid will reportedly be taking pay cuts if they want to remain with the network as ratings plummet. As first reported by The Ankler, the Reid Out and 11th Hour host have been in negotiation talks with MSNBC executives who want to cut their salaries. The network's rating took a staggering 50% nosedive after Trump won in November. Then anchor Rachel Maddow reportedly agreed to reduce her annual salary from $30 million to $25 million over the next 3 years. She works 1 day a week. Isn't that so generous of her? These are the people who get on there and they rail against the wealthy. And I'm telling you, I know this is hard to comprehend because you, in all likelihood, are an intellectually honest person. Like, how can somebody that was making $30 million to work 1 day a week rail against rich people? This is the way that the mind of the left works. The rules are different for them. They deserve it, see? It's everyone else who doesn't deserve it. That's just how their minds work. $30 million, and she slashed it down to 25 million. I mean, in particular, when a network that you believe is so important to democracy, you listen to the way that these people talk, the Rachel Maddows, the Joy Reids, the Stephanie Rules, the MSNBC is the saving grace of our democracy. It's so important. Meanwhile, it's folding in on itself because of a ratings decline. And Rachel Maddow, her offering as well, okay, I'll agree to 25 million over 3 years. Oh, don't do any heavy lifting there. The network's ratings, 50% nosedive. On top of that, MSNBC President Rashida Jones is rumored to be planning an exit from the network after Trump re-enters office. Journalist Oliver Darcy said, citing unnamed sources. CNN's Brian Stelter later said he confirmed the rumors with two other sources, though a spokesperson for Jones denied them. Currently, Reed makes $3 million per year, and Rule makes $2 million, according to Fox News. It's unclear if they will accept pay cuts to keep their respective shows. Well, how would Joy Reid make it? She's probably paycheck to paycheck. $3 million a year. Hey, whatever the market bears. It really does go to show that you can be a mean-spirited, divisive racist who isn't even very good at your job and still be a millionaire. Springfield's Talk 1041. Regarding Obamacare, Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line before the Affordable Care Act. I had a cyst on my left knee. I went to my doctor. He looked at it, saw that it was a cyst. He went and got the equipment, numbed, then removed the cyst and stitched up the area. About 4 weeks ago, I saw that I had a cyst on my right knee. It hurts a lot every time I kneel down. I went to the doctor, and he told them, I believe I have a cyst. She looked at it and said she wasn't sure what it was, and then sent me down to get x-rays. Then they sent me back to my room after the x-rays, and she said, it looks like a cyst, but I'll have to put in a referral for you to go see a dermatologist. By the way, I saw that your x-ray has a lot of damage to your knee. You should probably send you to an orthopedic for that. And I still haven't gotten a call back to see the dermatologist about the cyst that I need removed, which causes me a lot of pain every time I kneel down because I am a tech. Spends a lot of time on my knees underneath the desk hooking up computers for people. I mean, virtually anyone who has had to see a specialist since Obamacare has kicked into place have noticed. Well, I guess it depends on your age. If you're younger, you may not have known what it was like before. But this is the world that was given us by Obamacare. And what is so problematic about it is the idea of promises that everything can be wonderful and exactly the way you want it overrides any common sense, which means that getting rid of government intervention, it's not just about getting rid of Obamacare, this repeal and replace. Replace with what? Government? Government is the problem. The free market system is a system that has allowed television sets that used to be $10,000, $15,000 to be a couple of $100s. The free market system has allowed for the average person to have computing power in their hand that is far more powerful than the computing power that used to put shuttles into space. In areas in which government is not involving itself, in the free market system, products get more accessible, more advanced, and more affordable. But this fear that folks in the media, and specifically the Democrat Party, instill within people is done with such success that despite what we are able to see has been the results of government intervening in the healthcare system in this country, they just ask for more. And the idea of, hey, let's just go back to the way it was before it got this bad, scares people. You want to talk about nothing to fear but fear itself? We know what worked. We have that as part of our history. But that fear they instill in people, it is so, so damaging. In the upcoming hour, we will chat with Congressman Burleson. If you miss any of the show, of course, we have the on-demand section at ksgf.com, where we also stream the show, News in 60 Seconds. Wilder RV, all of your RV needs, end-of-year deals. WilderRV.com. It is a great website. You know, websites can go one way or another. Sometimes they're not of much use, and you end up trying to track information out on social media. But they do have a great website, transparent pricing, and you can find that perhaps an RV is much more affordable than you thought. Great time of year. Take advantage of those end-of-the-year deals. And if you haven't, because, you know, I mean, even this week, we're talking about temperatures in the upper 50s, going to be unseasonably warm. Maybe you haven't prepped it for winter yet. Good time to take care of that. Make that investment last for you as long as you want it to, and you can have all of that done in Clinton, Missouri, just north of Springfield on 13. Wilder RV, and you can find them, KSGF.com, under Nick's endorsements. I love this. Someone had texted in, and it was the ethics investigation report that was done on Matt Gaetz, and it's like, this is who Trump surrounds himself with. I read this, and it was just as easily about Hunter Biden. Everything that he was accused of doing in there is stuff that Hunter Biden acknowledges that he's done. I love these people that, they spend all this time defending Joe Biden, defending Hunter Biden, acting like it's no big deal, it's his private life. But then, if it's a Republican that gets accused of it, oh, well, all of a sudden. Incidentally, it was this is how upside down things are. It was the Biden administration that found the allegations in no way, shape, or form credible. In fact, the lead witness, if you will, is in prison for lying about these sorts of things. He has threatened other people in the past that he saw as political adversaries he threatened to claim that they were having relationships with underage girls. I mean, it's the exact same things that he was claiming about Matt Gaetz. So he's done this before, and this is what the Biden administration knew. This is why they didn't move forward with it. Now, the Republican establishment hates Matt Gaetz. Hates him. So this is one of those not so common scenarios in which you have a party turning against one of its own so publicly. But what I think is so hilarious about it is you have some of these Democrats running around acting as essential unknowing lapdogs of the Republican establishment. They're doing exactly what the Republican establishment wants them to do, and that is to trash on Matt Gaetz. So on one hand, you kind of roll your eyes because it's like the level of stupidity and it's like, are we serious? This is a Congress that pays out millions and millions and millions of dollars in hush money to victims of sexual assault. And we're going to act like accusations that the Biden administration itself did not believe. This is somehow what we need to concern ourselves with. I'm with those who say, I think that we should, every member of Congress who has had a hand in or involvement in a relationship with someone that resulted in hush money being paid to them, I think all that should be revealed. Because those are instances in which there's an acknowledgement that something did happen. Matt Gaetz and the Biden administration both have demonstrated through their actions and their words that there was nothing here. That these accusations they did not believe to be true. When it comes to the hush money that's been paid out to people who work on Capitol Hill, that's an actual action that demonstrates that there was something that occurred. Just watching people so easily allow themselves to be used as pawns in all of this. And what's hilarious is that generally it's the Democrat activists, particularly on social media, that the Republican establishment is using as pawns in order to do their work. It's perfect. So perfect. Congressman Burleson to join us coming up here in just a bit. Also, the latest weather, as I mentioned, unseasonably mild and wet. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Cullerton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see scattered showers mainly afternoon with a high near 50. Tonight showers with a low around 43. For Christmas Eve, showers and storms with a high near 49. And on Christmas Day, mostly cloudy with a high near 51.
Congressman Burleson joins us this morning, and of course, it has been a real busy. Why am I getting such feedback here? Is that? Oh, am I? He must. There we. I'm going to slide him down. I suspect he maybe has it on hold or something. But Congressman Burleson, last week, a couple of different times joined us, and this was because of the constant who knows what's going to happen next situation with the continuing resolution. And I do want to get updated on that. But first, I know something that you have been working on for some time is legislation that would protect people that own property around Table Rock Lake. Will you explain what that's about?
Yeah, good morning. So this is, I'm very excited about this. This is a big win for people that, property owners around Table Rock in that area, Taneycomo. The problem that we were facing for quite some time is that there's discrepancies or disagreements between where the property owner's property line ends and where the Corps' property begins. And the Corps over the years has gotten a little bit more aggressive in their approach, and what they've done is they've started using satellite imaging and other ways to start more accurately defining the lines, and that's really exposed a lot of places of encroachment. And the question is, what do you do about it? Well, the problem is this is not cheap, so it's not just somebody's like flower bed. We're talking about physical structures. Sometimes it's the corner of a home, sometimes it's a deck or a patio, sometimes it's their septic tank, and these are very expensive to remove. And so the attitude can't be just remove it, or here's a deadline that you have to remove it by, and if you don't, then we'll take you to court. So some of these penalties are absolutely devastating to retirees. So I actually visited the home of some people who bought a home for maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a couple $100,000, but they have now a $300,000 septic tank liability because the Corps said, hey, that septic belongs on our land and we're revoking the license for that and you have to remove it. So it's pretty devastating to a lot of people. So this bill says that the Corps must enter into a lease agreement it basically must offer And the idea is that at market rate, it's going to be pretty affordable should the Corps deal with this. But at the end of the day, it sends a strong message to the Corps that this is going to stop. You're not going to come in with a heavy hand approach.
So what's the likelihood that this is going to become law?
I believe the president is going to sign it.
Okay.
My guess is a 95% likelihood it becomes law.
Well, that certainly is a success in what has been a messy week. We spoke with you twice, on Tuesday and then I think it was Thursday, as we began to see things unfold. Mm-hmm. And what was supposed to be the standard kick the can down the road, continuing resolution. And because, again, I think especially since the election, and so many voters are like, are you kidding me? What about this have you not understood? What are you not learning here? And with the help of people like Elon Musk, who the media listened to, amplifying our voices, it seemed to cause a little bit of panic within the establishment. Then there was another vote, then a third vote. So if you would walk us through how you feel everything went, where it stands now, and where you landed and why.
Yeah, I think that the original bill that was coming out was the result of the dynamic that the speaker is in, where he has to negotiate with Hakeem and Chuck Schumer, and that's going to change very quickly. Mm. So I think that will get better, but because of that dynamic, a lot of this, the language of that monstrosity was crafted by staff between the Speaker's office and staff of the Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer's office. So as you can imagine, that those, you send your staff to do what elected officials should be doing. Mm. You're not going to get the best result. But then B, this, it's 2-on-1, or actually 2 or 3 against 1 when it comes to those negotiations. So that it put forward a 1,547-page bill that was bloated with a bunch of Democrat giveaways and substantive policy on it, like, for example, on healthcare, that was, in my opinion, going to raise everyone's insurance premiums. So it was bad, really bad. And we raised the alarm bells, and I was on your show. I was very depressed at the beginning of last week.
Yeah, I remember.
And then the next day came, and I was very honest and direct to the press about my opposition. I think I was one of the first people, if not the first person, to come out publicly against it. And I thought I was sticking my head on a platter to get ready to get cut off. But then what happened is, our community, people around the nation rallied to defeat that bill, and even Elon Musk stepped in. The president finally stepped in and said, not to pass it. So that was a big win. But then the next iteration was still not a great bill, because what happened is they just stripped off the policies that created the most of the pages, and they peeled it back to the same financial situation. So the first bill and the second bill both were putting us another $110 billion in debt. So, and then continuing the same failed, Pelosi budget of the last couple of years. So, which is a bloated budget. So when people talk about inflation, this is inflation. We are spending more money than we're bringing in. And when you spend more money, you print more money, you're devaluing the dollar. So but what Trump wanted is a political dynamic. It's not, I don't know that if you ask Trump that he wants to raise the debt ceiling. I don't think anybody does. But he doesn't want Chuck Schumer to use the need to raise the debt ceiling as a bludgeoning tool against him. He knows, based on experience, that when Chuck did this to him before, he had to give away a lot to the Democrats just to raise the debt ceiling.
Right.
So he wants that cleared from his deck. But I mean, if you think about it, it's it's not possible unless the Democrats are on board. The reason why it's not possible is that it requires a continuing resolution. To get to that, you'd have to have the 2/3 vote of the House. You're not going to get 2/3 of the House because you'd have to get half of the Democrats to vote for it. So that was not possible. I was a no. I've never voted to raise the debt ceiling. Never voted to do a CR that didn't have significant cuts or improvements to this nation, and I wasn't going to do it again just because because of the political dynamic at that moment. So I still voted no. I took some heat from some people that I'm so confused by. They claim to be, there's a lot of people on the internet that claim to be MAGA, but they're not conservative.
Right.
They're just, and they're not paying attention to what the policy really is, because we had a lot of people that called our lines and would say, "Why aren't you voting for this thing that Trump negotiated?" Well, it adds another $5 trillion to the national debt. I'm not going to vote on something that's going to add $5 trillion to the national debt, especially when there's no spending cuts involved. We're not bending the curve at all. In fact, we're giving away stuff to Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. There's no win in this bill, really. So so finally we ended up, they just peeled back the debt ceiling, and the Democrats voted with the moderates and ended up continuing the expenditures until March. So we will live to fight another day. We'll come back in March and deal with this all again, and along with a lot of things that are queued up. So we've got the first reconciliation package that's queued up, and so that's where things stand.
So I've thought about this, and in the midst of it, thinking about the position that some of you included were going to find yourselves in, which was the position that you did find yourselves in, that you're holding true to what you've run on and got elected on, but it was in contrast in this instance to what Trump wanted. One, I think I just want to throw this out there and then get your thoughts on it. I believe that right now the Freedom Caucus people and any others that are of the like have the ability to get the ship shifted a bit. I think it's still somewhat up in the air in terms of, I could see Trump going either way. Trump not worrying about the fiscal component to things as much, but I could also see him being forced into it, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, Trump, as great as he is going to be and has been in the past for the country, it doesn't mean that there cannot be these discussions about way to better ourselves. And I think that the fiscal responsibility component to this is one that if he recognizes that there is a contingency of folks like you that may not be in the majority, but that do have a lot of people behind them, then that might, help bring him a little further in that direction. And that's what I'm hoping happens.
Yeah, we're the group that wants him to achieve all the campaign agenda that he ran on. That's the Freedom Caucus. We want to fix the border. We want to cut spending and make government more efficient, like DOGE. We want to eliminate all the corruption in the federal government, eliminate all the weaponization of government, reform this government. That's the Freedom Caucus. And if the president, it needs allies in those efforts, we're going to be there.
Well,
I think that what we have to remember is we can't make perfect the enemy of the good, right?
Right.
So there's going to be times where we're going to have to give to some of our moderate friends, but as long as we are moving the ball down the field, for so long we never scored any touchdowns.
Yeah, right.
And we need to figure out how to score touchdowns and get some wins.
And I would encourage people also to recognize that it is okay sometimes to disagree on particular issues. And I understand the instinct to come to Trump's defense because of the opposition is usually the left. And so just, there's that instinct. Okay, well, if Trump is up against opposition, then Trump's way, odds are, is the right way. But it's a different element. And I think that we should, I mean, no, of course, it would be great if everyone was always on the same page, but I don't think we need to when it's within our own, and it's for fiscal responsibility. It's not like we're talking about lefty stuff here. When we're talking about
Yeah.
a battle over, cutting, and I think that is something that we should be okay with. And we don't need to,
Yeah.
have a knee-jerk reaction, and just throw out any hopes of potentially getting some meaningful thing done fiscally because
Yeah.
Trump in that moment may not believe that it's the right move at that time.
Yeah. I think that what I hope your listeners take away from this is that we're going to be in these fights,
Yeah.
and the president is going to be faced with, if he wants to get whatever it is that downfield or whatever objective he wants passed, then he's either going to have to, because he's either going to have to give to some Democrats and get their votes,
Right.
which makes the bill bad, really bad usually, and we get almost no wins out of it, or he's gonna embrace the Freedom Caucus, and then he's going to have to lean on the moderates.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
And that's what is, it's typically in politics, they don't want to lean on the middle because the middle are the vulnerable. They're the ones that you want them to come back, you want them to win. So you always want to give them wins. That's the tendency. But the problem is, if you let the middle, the moderates, dictate what policies we get done, you lose the base and you lose any inspiration whatsoever from, and you lose your ability to do big things. So that's the balance that we have to face. And if there's a lot of political will, if the public is out there demanding that, the president works with the Freedom Caucus and with the conservatives to achieve those campaign promises, then I think that that's the kind of help that we need.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else before we let you go?
Merry Christmas, Nick.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you, and hope that you all have a wonderful time. I'm sure that you will. So, and yeah, so I'll be gone.
I have 2 days to go shopping.
Oh, all right. Well, good luck with that. And then I'll be gone next Monday, so I'll talk with you the Monday after that.
Sounds great.
All right. Thank you,
Merry
sir.
Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Congressman Burleson. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Reminder, tomorrow morning, the morning show will be special programming, then Glenn Beck, and then at noon, we will kick into Chip Davis of Mannheim Steamroller hosting an American Christmas, as we do every year, and we hope that you look forward to that. It's good stuff. It's great to have on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, so something to keep in mind, particularly if you're looking for something back. And it's not all music, and it's not all Mannheim Steamroller stuff. It is music that spans the decades, and then all sorts of really interesting Christmas-related historical information in there as well. So if you have not caught it in years past, I definitely recommend that you check it out starting at noon tomorrow.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Cullerton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see scattered showers mainly afternoon with a high near 50. Tonight, showers with a low around 43. For your Christmas Eve, showers and storms with a high near 49. And on Christmas Day, mostly cloudy with a high near 51.
So apparently, what so many of us observed when Joe Biden was checking his watch multiple times during the dignified transfer of remains for those that unnecessarily lost their lives in Afghanistan, that wasn't the worst of it. Biden apparently kept the grieving families of those Marines who died during that botched withdrawal waiting for hours so he could take a nap. While critics bashed Biden for checking his watch multiple times during the dignified transfer of remains for the fallen Marines, one of the Marines' family members told the Daily Mail that was not the worst part. Quote, Biden made us wait an extra 3 hours to receive the bodies of our dead family members because he couldn't pull it together, said Royce McCollum, sister of fallen Marine Riley McCollum. While McCollum and other families waited for the president, a military officer told them that he was napping on the plane. Quote, we sat in his office for what seemed like an eternity waiting on the doddering old fool, said Darren Hoover, father of Staff Sergeant Taylor Hoover. A White House spokesperson says that they're lying. Well, sure. I mean, they haven't done enough to really stick it to these family members. Why not call them all liars also? Quote, if the president was not answering his phone or taking advice from anyone who was really making the final decisions to go with the withdrawal, further asked Darren Hoover, and this is, as you can imagine, these family members are finding themselves asking even more questions than having answers because of all of the acknowledgments from people within the Biden administration that he hasn't been running things. Of course, Biden from the beginning said he was just doing what he was told. He was advised by everyone around him that this was the right thing to do, yet everyone around him said, no, this is what Biden told us to do, so we don't know. You know, it's one thing to have a president that, listen, knowing what we know now, maybe it was the wise thing to do, as opposed to him falling asleep during the dignified transfer. Maybe they calculated he needs to take a nap first to diminish the likelihood that he is going to doze off. We don't want the president to come off seeming as if he doesn't care, although the fact that he kept looking at his watch certainly negated any efforts to try to prevent that sort of narrative from existing. Knowing what we know now, it's plausible that they felt it would be best to have him rested up. But when the families call him out for it, to call them liars, to say this wasn't true, have they not been through enough already? The depraved nature of these people, the callousness in which they dismiss people whose loved ones were taken from them, and then to utilize the platform of the presidency to accuse them of lying. Jen Psaki already did that in the book she wrote, in which she claimed it wasn't true that he looked at his watch numerous times. She had to apologize for that. No shame. Speaking of no shame, this horrific story of the individual that this is a migrant from Guatemala, allegedly set this woman on fire and watched her burn to death on the F train in Brooklyn. This is something that, of course, not just in New York, but even globally, this sort of offense, this sort of crime is just above and beyond what I think people even in New York are expecting to occur on a potentially daily basis because of the way that New York has been run. That same day that this was dominating the news headlines in New York and around the country, you have Governor Hochul claiming that crime has decreased on Big Apple trains since she deployed the National Guard in March. She messaged out in March, I took action to make our subway safer for the millions of people who take the trains each day since deploying the National Guard New York to support NYPD and MTA safety efforts and adding cameras to all subway cars. Crime is going down and ridership is going up. Probably best not to make that posting after a human being was lit on fire and burned to death in the subway. Some of these people. But hey, democracy at work. This is the sort of person that the people in New York want in charge. And so this is what they get. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, all of your home buying needs, your home selling needs. This time of year, oftentimes you perhaps hosting or no longer hosting Christmas. You have more family, you have less family. You start thinking this house may not be the fit that it once was. Before you pull the trigger on deciding to sell it, first visit with Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. She can guide you through any sort of alterations, improvements, changes you need to make. What you think might be necessary in order to get more out of your house may not do that at all. In fact, it may be the sort of thing that can cost you money. Things change. People's wants and needs change. Their expectations change, and therefore the housing market changes. And that's where Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, comes into play to help guide you through it all. Buying and selling, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. There's a 81-year-old congresswoman that represents a district in Texas that has been missing, apparently, for some time. Well, it turns out she has been found after the 6 months, and she apparently, according to the local Daily Express, learned that she is in a facility and that apparently is suffering from dementia. She suddenly disappeared from the public eye around July this year when she cast her final vote against an amendment to reduce the salary of Deputy Assistant Administrator for pesticide programs to $1. A curious reporter at the local Dallas Express newspaper did some digging on the Congresswoman's whereabouts and has finally been able to give her constituents some answer. The reporter, Carlos Turquoise, began by contacting her office, from which they went directly to voicemail. The voice of the Congresswoman, Granger, said, "I'm sorry we're unable to answer your phone right now. We're really glad you called us. Please leave your name, phone number, and a brief message, and someone in our office will call you back as soon as possible." The reporter then went to her constituency office, only to find absolutely no signs of life or activity. Seemingly at a dead end, the reporter then received a tip-off from a local resident that Granger was residing at an assisted living facility specializing in memory care. His report explains when we received a tip from a Granger constituent who shared that the Congresswoman has been residing at a local memory care and assisted living home for some time after having been found wandering, lost, and confused in her former Cultural District West 7th neighborhood. The Dallas Express team visited the facility to confirm whether Congresswoman Granger was residing there and to inquire about how she planned to vote on the spending bill. Upon arrival, 2 employees confirmed that Granger is indeed living at the facility. However, he writes, "We were not permitted to conduct an interview regarding the current spending debate in the House of Representatives and how or if Ms. Granger planned to vote." Taylor Manzel, who is the assistant executive director for the senior living facility, acknowledged to the Dallas Express that, quote, "This is her home." It remains unclear why Granger's relatives or staff declined to disclose her condition to the public. Among those to express their displeasure at the situation was State Republican Executive Committee man Rolando Garcia, who described it as a sad and humiliating way to end her political career. Granger had already announced her retirement at the end of Congress. From January, the seat will be held by Greg Goldman, a Republican who was formerly a member of the Texas House of Representatives. Now, whether it was the right move or the wrong move, I suppose one could argue, listen, her term was going to be up anyway. There's really no point in putting her and her family through this humiliating display. I imagine that's probably why the family did not want it to be public, since she had already announced she was not going to run for re-election, that she could just live out what days she has left without any attention being paid to it. The ironic portion of this, however, is that now it may get even more attention than it would have beforehand. I will say, at least they put her in a facility. It could have been, like Joe Biden, where they continued to, can you imagine, just continue to have her come out, and no matter how obvious it is that she was suffering from any form of dementia, that no, she's perfectly fine, she's as sharp as a tack. She runs circles around other members of Congress. When she's in the room, all eyes are on her. She's physically fit as can be, she's sharp as a tack, because this, of course, is what we heard forever and a day about Joe Biden, and anyone who said otherwise was spreading disinformation that Russia was probably behind. Speaking of, one of the senators, Chris Coons, that was very vocal about Joe Biden being sharp as a tack, as this was becoming more discussed and more talked about. Some networks, anyhow, instead of covering, would actually ask Democrat colleagues of Biden, what of these rumors? And of course, they would spread the disinformation that he's perfectly fine. Coons was one of those. Martha McCallum had him on over the weekend and asked him in retrospect about the fact that, given that the acknowledgement is that he's been having these problems since he was first elected, this isn't anything new, this isn't a surprise, you kind of acted like he was perfectly fine.
But I want to ask you one more time. When you reflect on your own role in reporting how you saw President Biden and his ability to govern, knowing that the security of this country is the highest responsibility, way over any friendship or personal ties, do you have any regrets about not saying to others, look, is he fit to serve now? And is he fit to serve for another 4 years, Senator?
Look, Martha, the first time I saw an incident where President Biden seemed to me to not be on top of his game was his debate with President-elect Trump. That, for me, was a challenging moment. And it produced a several-week process where I started asking my colleagues and folks at the White House about whether they had seen anything similar. Okay. I do not hang out with the president on the weekends. I don't spend time with him socializing and in person. My experience with him in the time up to that debate led me to believe that he was fully capable of competently leading our nation, both from a security perspective and legislatively.
All right, well, someone with that perspective should not be in Congress, because this means one of two things. Either he is continuing to lie, or his observational skills are so bad he should not be making decisions that impact this country. This excuse that, I'm not hanging out with him, so there's no way I could have known. Well, everyone else seemed to know. Average Americans could see it. This is why you were asked about it. The earlier part, there was a couple of different exchanges, and he was trying to pivot and shift the conversation to Elon Musk. But she played audio of him saying that Biden is as sharp as he's ever been, that he is on top of his game, there's nothing wrong with him. The reason she asked him that question at that time was because everyone was talking about how he clearly had a problem. So if Chris Coons was unable to determine that there was something wrong with this guy just by the casual observations that millions of other Americans were able to see, I don't think that he has the judgment to be in his position. Now, clearly, I think most reasonable people are going to see that he's lying. I get when you're trying to pitch a position on something that you are going to sometimes cherry pick details or leave other things out because you are wanting to sell your plan. You're wanting to sell your idea to the American people. So you figure out a way to relay it that is going to be most favorable. That's one thing. But when you have no shame and you go on national television and gaslight people, straight up lying about the president's condition, you can be trusted for nothing. Nothing. And this pathetic explanation, well, I don't hang out with him on weekends or anything. Oh, okay, yes. The millions of Americans who recognized that he has some severe cognitive decline, we're all hanging out with the guy on weekends. These people have no shame. Speaking of discrediting oneself, Don Lemon sparred with a TikToker over, quote, President Musk. Don Lemon caught in a verbal war against a TikToker over Elon Musk's influence on President-elect Donald Trump. The ex-CNN host spoke to various people in New York City over the weekend about the claim Democrats are pushing, the conspiracy theory that the ex-CEO is the shadow president over Trump, based on Musk's leading the online conservative opposition to a bipartisan deal to avoid a partial government shutdown. Lemon asked, who's the real president-elect, do you think? To which the TikToker noted Donald Trump. Democratic lawmakers, Lemon followed up, in Washington are calling Elon Musk now, and they're saying Donald Trump is the vice president or the head of communications. What? Wait a second. No one said that, the TikToker responded, to which Lemon interrupted, really? You're not paying attention. To which he said, absolutely not. I'm paying attention to what I'm doing during my day so I can try and get a better life and get ahead. Lemon then told John to look up President Musk on his phone to prove his point, to which John obliged, saying there's already a loaded question here, you realize. John found reports from Axios, Business Insider, ABC News, Washington Post, New York Times, The Atlantic, using the term President Musk, which Lemon considered a win. To which the TikToker responded, we don't trust any of these. The common man doesn't trust any of this. I don't trust any of these. I don't trust any of them. I don't trust any of these, where we are the common man. We don't trust any of these. No one trusts the government. No one trusts the common news. We don't trust any of that anymore. Independent news. We are the ones that own the news now. People trust me. They don't trust MSNBC because I care, and I'm actually one of them, to which Lemon conceded, well, I can't disagree with you there. And then another defection from the Democrat Party, DNC powerhouse fundraiser announcing exit from the party following attacks. Quote, it's like leaving a cult, she says. Prominent Democrat National Committee powerhouse fundraiser Lindy Lee announced that she is leaving the Democrat Party, which she referred to as a cult, after facing an onslaught of internal attacks for criticizing Kamala Harris last week. Lee, a Democrat strategist, served as both a surrogate for Harris and a member of the DNC's National Fundraising Committee, where she raised tens of millions of dollars on behalf of Democrat candidates. She also frequently appeared on the air to stump for Harris's 2024 presidential campaign. Lee became the target of the left's attacks earlier this month when she expressed support for President-elect Donald Trump's defense secretary nominee, Pete Hegseth, but it was the party's vitriolic response to a subsequent appearance on Fox News that pushed her rightward, saying, she said on Piers Morgan Uncensored, saying, the past week has been harrowing for me. And this is what happens when you cross the cult. And she, like an increasing number of influential people within the party, are fleeing. Glenn Beck's coming up next. Merry Christmas. I'm Nick Reed.